everybody? Welcome back with the Plat. Purplatypus is the name. More Unicorn Overlord, kind of, today. So we are going to be doing a tier list, and yes, it is as professional as it looks. I did not just throw this together in the last 5 minutes, so I had something that I could make a video on. But first thing you're going to notice, this is a definitive tier list. Everything has been meticulously tested for thousands of hours over dozens of playthroughs. So if you disagree with anything, it just means that you're wrong and you haven't caught up to my level yet, okay? So you're going to notice that there's two units that are missing here. We don't have the fencer person, the swordmaster, and we don't have the radiant knight. Now the real reason is because they're so bad they're not worth using. But the real reason is that I honestly just haven't used them enough to do that. The game's coming out pretty soon here. And I will be trying to use it, but I'm already on my third playthrough and I'm taking my time on this one, so I don't think I'm going to get to them before the demo, but I will, and the updated tier list will have them for sure, absolutely. But really quick, before we jump into it, you know what we got to do. Thank you to my now 10 members and supporters on YouTube. I appreciate it. You are the real MVPs, making it possible. Well, I mean, that's not true, but you are helping. You are making me more excited to do it. I appreciate that I get to shout you guys out. Thank you very much. The giveaway has definitely given me an influx. You know, I went from, 4 or 5 to 10, so it doubled it. So thank you for that. Anyway, we're going to jump right into it here. And, yeah, we're going to rank all of the characters based off my experience in the demo. I will try to consider items, but I'm not going to try to make it like a definitive all items here. I want to see if I can get that ad out of the other thing. There we go. Oh, whoa, mayday, everyone panic. I'm going to see if I can, I'm going to try to include some items, mostly because I think some jobs become way better or classes become way better depending on items. But first, we're going to the Lord. I'm putting the Lord in the S tier right away. I think the Lord is just pretty nuts at everything. They have a really good attack. The attack allows them to heal themselves 25, potentially 50% of their HP if they kill something. So they're a good front line. They have a automatic block, right? So they could use their PP to block. And if they're below 50% life, it means they actually get that PP back. So they can guarantee block every attack the closer they get to death, which is pretty big, especially if you delay the healing, I think it's lean edge or something, the one that heals you, you delay that until you're below like 25% life. If you're careful, then suddenly all your blocks are guaranteed. You're getting more life, and then you heal at the end of the fight instead. And so that could be a very good thing. So they're good in the front line. Honestly, just pretty good damage. They're a little bit agile, a little bit tanky, a little bit damage dealing. They kind of just are all-rounders, but they're pretty good at all of the things. And their unique abilities are pretty good. I like the ability to jump in front of an ally and take a hit. I like the ability to self-heal. The Cavalry Slayer is like fine, I guess, but overall, Elaine has been one of my strongest units in the entire game. What do they promote into? I don't know. I know they get a horse, so maybe they become really, really good cav. But for now, we're just going with the Lord. Next up is Lex the Fighter, or just, the fighter in general. I'm going to put this in C tier. I'm not going to go as low as D. And that's because... So I think Lex is a bad character at the start of the game. I think most people that use him are just like, oh, he gets out. He literally has every stat less than Elaine, right? Even though they're at the same level, it's like every stat is just a point or two lower. So he kind of sucks. He even has the same exact style of equipment. And his attack is way worse, and his passive is way worse. But the reason I don't think the fighter is a D tier is when they're a leader and they can reduce the damage you take from ranged attacks, that becomes pretty useful in a lot of the fights in their game. It doesn't work against magic, so maybe it kind of falls off if there's more mages, but like the ranged assist damage down has been a relevant part of my experience with the game so far. And so I really like that. Combined with the fact that Arrow Guard, I think, is pretty good. It makes them pair really well with a thief or a flyer, when there's like an enemy archer. I think Arrow Guard is just pretty good. It protects against ranged attacks, and I think that's actually better than most people are thinking, because a lot of attacks range attacks doesn't just mean the hunter's bow. The flyers, right? The flyers that could swing into the back row, they count as a ranged attack, which is kind of weird. I assume it's because it's not piercing and it can attack a column, but it can attack the back row, so it's just distinction in the game. It makes it ranged. So even though it's a melee hit, it's a ranged hit with the flyer, which is kind of interesting. So I think this can actually cover more than we think, but I feel like they might just be too weak and too niche to be insane. So at least in the early game, they're a C. Maybe they bump up as they go later, but for right now, they're going C. House Carl, I'm going to go with... I'm going to go with B with House Carl. I think House Carl is good. They do a lot of damage, and the parting blow is nice, but they're really mostly the parting blow. I just think they're like the perfect middling unit. They kind of do one thing, which is deal damage, and they don't deal damage the best, but they do good damage. But they're not like amazing. Nothing they do really like strikes me as like, holy crap, what a good hit. I do like the axe that lets you stun people you get that this character starts with. It allows you to do some really cheeky dot builds early on where you can like, because if you hit someone with poison, they take damage when their turn starts. But if they're stunned, they'll take damage and then they'll skip their turn, and then their turn will come up again. They'll take poison damage again. So they'll take 2 instances of poison or whatever burn damage for 1 action point that they have. So it actually doubles if you're fighting a big enemy that's really tanky, you could still like kill them with dots. So I think that's pretty cool. But I think it's a little bit outside of the House Carl. That's more of a mechanics thing with stun as part of the House Carl. But they seem pretty decent. Warriors. Now this is where I may be wrong. I've used them a little bit, but not much. I'm gonna put this as my 1D tier unit. I don't know if I'm gonna put anything else this low. Maybe one more thing. I just like, so what, here they are. They're anti high defense units, right? But they're not anti-high physical defense units. They're anti-armored units. So it has to be an armored unit, and then their attack lets them bypass basically their armor. Attack as if they had no defense, which is good. They can one-shot like heavy hoplights or whatever, but so can mages and stuff. And mages are just better. Like, maybe I haven't given this unit enough time yet to cook, and maybe I've just not needed them in my party. Between the runic blade and just having mages and stuff, like, they've just not felt strong for me. Which I think is going to go S tier. It might be high A. I don't know. So the witch has like this really good ability to freeze things. And when you freeze things, they stay frozen until they get dealt damage again. Meaning if you could freeze a target and then you could have all your other characters not attack a frozen target until the end of the combat, like you're not one-rounding them, like they could probably just permanently skip their action. I know there's like this whole freeze build you could do. And she gets this tome that lets her do more freeze or whatever. And also, then she just adds like really, really good magic damage to an ally that's attacking. When they're attacked, she'll add magic damage to their attack. So if you're fighting something with a little bit of it, like, it's not as good if they have a brutally high physical defense, because you're still doing normal damage, but adding some magic damage. But on the opposite, where it's like they've kind of got even defenses or maybe a little bit lower magic defense, like, it's just some good extra damage for a passive ability. Not insane, but I do think it's pretty good. Freezing enemies is very strong, and overall, I think freeze might just be a really, really powerful status effect. I might be overestimating this because I haven't had a single fight where I've had to use this strategy, but I think that it's going to be a really powerful strategy. Hoplights, I'm going to put hoplights down in the C tier as well. I think they're just there's just a lot of things that kill them, man. I mean, they have really good defense, and there are some fights where they are absolutely incredible. And I really, really like hoplights with thieves. The issue is the Lord is just like better at it. But like if the thief gets attacked, it's nice because the hoplite will come in and tank 1 attack, and that'll make it so the thief doesn't have to use their evade. So that if the hoplite can survive 1 hit, then the thief can actually then after that like keep tanking or whatever. I just like it just their damage has been so low and their tankiness has been insane until it suddenly just completely breaks and they have 1 instant of magic damage and you just fucking blow up because you got like 2 magic, you know. I think that there are going to be fights that they're good, and maybe it deserves B. maybe it deserves B just because they are so strong at anti-physical. And if they're not bringing specifically a magic user or a warrior, then they're probably the tankiest unit in that regard. Okay. I'm going to stick low B for now. Soldier, I think Soldier is a solid A tier. I don't think they're S, but they are very good. They have a piercing attack, you know, hits a full column basically, which is already good. So you basically get 2 attacks on them with 1 AP. Per AP, you're basically getting 2 attacks. But beyond that, also, like, the healing at the end of combat, that's not small. That's a pretty good deal. And then they get Javelin, which is an anti-air unit. I don't know if it increases their chance to hit. It doesn't imply to me that it will. Maybe it's a ranged attack, and ranged doesn't get the same double evasion bonus of other flyers. But it still gives you extra potency versus cavalry. Then there's extra on the normal attack, and then extra potency versus flyers on the thrown attack. Then it has healing, and then it could even give a character a guaranteed crit with their other PV point. I mean, Soldier's just kind of fucking lit, honestly. Like, maybe not S tier, but I mean, I think this is like, you always want a soldier in your party. They look a little unimposing, and their damage numbers aren't insane, but it's because their damage is usually being divided. You know, they only have an 80 potency and not the highest attack, but it's hitting 2 things, so it's actually doing quite a bit of team damage. It can help burn the PP off multiple units at the same time. They kind of get countered by Hoplights, because the Hoplite will jump in front of something and your piercing attack will end up only hitting 1 thing, I think, usually. But still, overall, I think an incredibly powerful unit. Gladiator. I think I'm the only one that likes Gladiator. I've not watched other people play it, but from my chat is like a lot of people are like, Gladiators just kind of suck. I think Gladiators are actually kind of an A tier unit. I think that they are the potential highest damage dealing frontline. And so they have a major issue where they get fucking obliterated by thieves and they get obliterated by shamans, because this unit more than anyone else really needs that PP. But they kind of have an interesting tanking method, which I really like. It's all HP. They don't care about defenses, right? Which I'm afraid that this will get really bad into the late game. If you get into the really late game and you have, let's say you have 10 defense, but everything else has like 40 defense or something, and suddenly you're taking 30 more damage a hit. I mean, how much more HP can you actually have? I don't know if it'll actually allow you to tank that many more hits, but their passive is right. Their whole gimmick is that they take a hit and then they heal after they take damage. And what's good about this is you can set up bulk up, so is what it's called, to not activate until you're like below 50% life. It normally activates the second you take any damage or below 100% life. You can make it so it activates later. That way you're kind of getting more value out of it per thing. And then obviously if you get more, every time you get a point of PP, it really, really makes this guy way more tanky because it gives him 40% more HP effectively. So super good unit. And I also like his melee attack, although is low accuracy, it does hit a full row. It's a wide swing that hits a full row. It's a full row at 150 potency, which this guy has a lot of physical attack. Not the highest, but a lot. And besides that, it also goes up to 200 potency if he's at full life, which is kind of one of his gimmicks. I guess you could say is like he kind of heals himself up to full. And so a potentially 200 potency AoE attack is just, I mean, that's pretty good too, while being a pretty tanky frontline. And even in the worst case where you have to take him off the front line, put him in the back, and because you have a different unit that could be in the front line, like they still are going to not completely fall off. Like the Hoplight, my Hoplight just has not done any damage. Like they were not combat units, they were protectors, right? And so I feel like the Gladiator can kind of still deal some damage and be useful to the team. Thief, I just released a video, or I'm gonna release a video that's gonna say I think Thieves are gonna fall off in the late game, but we're doing a demo tier list, and in the demo, Thieves are, I think, borderline S tier. I think I'm gonna put them borderline S tier. I mean, they just don't get hit by shit, man. The only thing they get hit by is like literally true strike damage, right? Like if they don't even use unwavering spears, but if the enemy uses like an archer, right, you can guarantee hit it. But this is the thing about a thief that's so good. Like, one, the thief can already dodge everything, but they do decent damage because they do the poison, or they have the passive steal, but they also have a cool poison attack. And so I actually kind of like them with the trying to set up the damage over time build. But beyond that, like if the evade is so smart because it doesn't he doesn't evade an attack that he passively evades. He has to fail his passive ability to dodge an attack. And then, so they have to land an attack, and then he will consume an evade stack to then dodge the attack instead, which is super strong. And then if they have someone like an archer with true damage or whatever, true hit, you could have someone jump in front and take that hit for him, which is like super good. So you can mess with your front lines. Like there was a fight that I'm like, oh, this is way too hard. I can't do anything here, you know, in this front line, because no matter who I have in the front line is like they're getting obliterated. And then it's like, oh, but I had the thief. And I was like, all right, it was like my first time playing because I didn't think, even though they say put the thief in the front row, I wasn't thinking about it. But then you put the thief in the front row and suddenly he just dodges. You take 0 damage. And if there is a situation where you could see in a battle preview where he could die, if you mess around with the formation a little bit, you put 2 on the front line, he absorbs half the attacks. The other character absorbs maybe 1 attack. Suddenly you're fine again, man. Like, I think the thief just like keeps your team alive while still dishing out a pretty decent amount of damage. Absolutely destroys gladiators. The PP absorb is not very good against hoplights, but then he has poison, which is pretty good against hoplights, because it does true damage. Basically, it's a % of your life. So I think they're pretty darn good. Wizards here, mages, I forget exactly which one they're called. They're going into A tier. These are basically just super damage units. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's not appropriate to put the witch above the wizard. There might need to be some adjustment here. But the wizard, the mage, I don't remember which one it is. They're just kind of nuts powerful in my opinion. Like they do a lot of damage. The issue is they are kind of a one-trick pony. So if you're going up against something like a Radiant Knight with a lot of magic defense, like they kind of suck. But even then, the burning, like this has a chance to apply burning, and then you can apply multiple stacks of burning. And then if you get that really cool staff in the beginning of the game, when you first get this guy, it's like he'll target a burning target, and then he'll do an AoE attack on all of them at the end of combat. Like, so he has like the best AoE, I think, because he could hit everybody potentially, and then the fire damage was just good. Like overall, I mean, I'm gonna put them in a lot of comps, and I just like having magic attack, so I'm gonna put them in the top of A tier. I don't know if they're broken. But I have been impressed. But I haven't been like, oh, I win every fight guaranteed. Joseph is a paladin. I'm gonna put in the A tier. I know it's Joseph, and it's kind of weird to include him. At least in my mind, it's kind of weird to include him. It's weird to include him because he's a pre-promote, right? He actually belongs here. If we're gonna if this was like all these units, if he was a not promoted unit, 2 AP, 2 PP, the ability to heal, the ability to deal damage, the ability to reduce damage taken by half, to reduce ailments, to then pursuit. Like he's just got too much going on. But I don't even know. He's kind of like an NA almost, because he's so much more powerful in terms of having built-in double AP, double PP to all the other units. Because all these are pre-promoted, and he's promoted. So I don't know. I guess I'm going to keep him off, but yeah, he's incredibly strong. I don't know if you should rely on him, but he's definitely a tool that you could use. All right, here we go. S tier, Clive the Knight. Knights are S tier. I'm going to put them in the top of S tier right now. They deal double damage to infantry. That means every point of attack is doubled at a point of attack, essentially. I mean, basically give or take. It's however much damage you would deal, you deal double that damage. So that's a lot. There's only 3 types of infantry or units in this game, right? I think there's infantry, there's cavalry, and then there's flying. Most are infantry. So unless the game completely changes, or there's just different unit types, like the werewolves aren't infantry or elves aren't infantry, they're considered elves, not infantry, I don't know. Dealing double damage to most of the units in the game is a lot. Not to mention, if they kill something, they get their AP back with their assaulting lance. Not to mention, if you have things like the wavering spear, you could also still do high damage and do AoE through it. You don't even need the unwavering spear. They get the ability to do a full line charge, which will stun both those targets. And then they also get the ability to spend their PP to give all other cavalry plus like 15% attack. They do it to themselves before they attack. And so now it's like, it just is this massive stacking attack buff, especially if you have multiple cavalry. And then their last PP kind of sucks. It's like the ability to block, but whatever. Absolutely just like double damage with abilities that give them more AP for killing things, which is exactly what double damage allows you to do. Hunter, right now I'm putting Hunter in the D tier. There hasn't been a use case where I've found them good yet. If you're going up against a lot of thieves, maybe. Wizards with their triple hit tend to do just fine. The Unwavering Spear seems to do just fine. I haven't come up against party comps that I was like, oh shit, I really need something that could do. Like, they're fine. They do okay damage, but using your PP to then deal a guaranteed hit is just kind of like a waste of the PP. So I would usually equip something on them to get rid of that. I mean, dealing double damage to flyers is fine, but there hasn't been that many flyers. I think that this is a unit that in the rock, paper, scissors kind of format, I just haven't really felt like I've needed them for anything yet. They've been good, but it's like, oh, it's not like I'm doing, oh yeah, Rolf is in the team, let's go. It's more like, oh shit, there's a unit that I could actually use Rolf for. Let's go, let's actually deploy him for this one combat. Then we'll undeploy him, put in a different unit. That's usually what I do. Hi there, kitty cat, how you doing? Looking out the window. All right, we got a flyer here. That's the Griffin Knight. Griffin Knight, I'm a little biased. Okay, everyone's biased, but I'm biased against Griffin Knights. I don't like flying units in general, but I'm going to put Griffin Knight as B tier. It's got to be. I got to put it at least A tier, and I probably got to put it above these. I don't really like a lot of what they do. They deal double damage to cavalry. That's pretty cool. They have double dodge chance against infantry or ground melee attacks. I mean, that's really good. It makes them potentially better evasion tanks than the thieves. Their attack is AoE and can hit the back line. It's really good. I don't think their stats are that amazing. They seemed pretty low to me. And they only have 4 stamina, which is really bad. And their movement speed isn't even that fast. They're slower than cavalry, but they could fly over stuff on the meta like level. You know, on the map, they could fly over stuff. I think that they felt not that strong to me, but I feel like as the game progresses, having a bunch of Griffin Knight leaders or whatever, or Wyvern Knight leaders or something, and then just having a bunch of flyers, bypassing all the enemies and going straight to the boss and nuking them to death will be a viable like speedrun strategy to get past all of the crap that you don't want to have to deal with. They can hit the back line with an AoE attack. It doesn't matter if you don't deal that much damage, but being able to hit the back line, being able to have double dodge rate, I think that earns them A rank, at least for me. I haven't been blown away, but I have really liked them. There he goes. That way. All right, Bernice. I'm putting Bernice up in the S tier. Yeah. No. I'm putting Bernice high A tier. In fact, I'm going to move the witch down to the A tier too. I think this is more appropriate. So, this is what we're going to do. Bernice is a sellsword. Sellsword is basically a cheese grater. They're a spin to win. They attack a lot. Basically, they get, whenever an ally gets attacked, you can jump up and attack someone, and it takes your passive point. But if you actually land that attack, then your passive point comes back to you. So you might have a little bit of accuracy problems because their accuracy is a little bit low. But, like, I really haven't had that problem in this stage of the game. But let's just say you forego a little bit of attack to get a little bit more accuracy. You're probably landing everything against most targets other than, like, specific units that are designed to dodge things, right? And they have S rank attack. They hit really hard. Now, I think when your knights aren't going to be dealing double damage to, like, other things, basically, like the knights don't deal double damage to other knights, I think that's when you might be using characters like this, ones that just do flat out more damage, because they have a really high attack stat and their normal heavy swing is like 150 potency, and they have the same knight thing where if they kill something with like their killing chain, they do the attack, they kill something, it'll give them their AP back. So they have the ability to attack the most, which I think pairs them really well with like any kind of thing that you could do that boosts their attack in that combat, they'll get more use out of it than other classes. Like even the I don't know, there was like an accessory that was like a belt. They get like 20% more attack. I mean, that lasts for all those attacks that she does in that fight. So like I think it's just really, really powerful. Honestly, it's my favorite job, or my favorite class out of all of them, but I don't know if they're gonna be the best. It's hard to beat double damage, but it's definitely my favorite. It's very fun, and I love their Valor ability, just to summon some dumb boys. You summon like an actual squad, and they just go up and they just start smacking into things and then instantly die because they suck. All right. This one's going to be kind of interesting. Let's do the easy one. Cleric is S tier. Now, I think Cleric is S tier primarily off the items. That lyrical wand or whatever it's called, the one that lets you give an AP to something, then you can get another thing that gives like her another. So that one gives her an AP passively, and she can give the AP to someone else. Then you can get another thing that gives her AP, and she just becomes like a battery, basically, is the term, right? She has a bunch of AP. She can give it out to other people. She heals people and gives them AP. And then she could also do like protect. She could also like, there's so many items that are really good. And even then the normal kit is good. I think that wand that lets her move the AP around is the main thing that kind of breaks the character though. Because like without that, being able to heal and support and stuff is good, but it's not good for attacking, right? If you're giving up damage to support, there's a stamina system in the game. So if you don't one-round enemies, you're using more stamina to progress the fight, right? Because you have a very finite amount. It's not finite amount of stamina, but like characters will have 5 before they have to rest or something, right? And so if it takes you 2 rounds to kill something instead of 1 round, you're only going to get through 2 units, and then you're going to have to stop on the 3rd unit. Whereas if it takes you 1 round, you can kill all 5 units, and then take a nut and keep going, kind of thing. Take them smoky nuts and keep going. And so I think the Cleric is not good in that regard at the base. But once you get this ability, it's like you're not even losing damage having her. You just have the support and you have the damage because she gives an AP to someone. So it's like she gives them another turn. And so her turn is actually just replaced by your strongest. It's like having 2 of your strongest unit a lot of times. Now, sometimes maybe you want to use the heal on someone else, like someone with... maybe you want to use it on your front line or something, and they're not as strong, but you probably would have it targeted to choose character with the highest physical attack or something, right? And then, have her PP be used for healing and stuff. But overall, just kind of a broken character, I think, but I think it's more with diversity of builds possible in the game, and less so just like on the sheet when you read them. They don't seem that broken, because I don't think healing is that super strong. I don't think it's weak. It's good, and you want some sustain, but I really think her build comes together when you start getting more items. Now, Shaman. I think Shaman is kind of I think Shaman is A tier, maybe S tier. It's tough. I think they're S tier. I'm convincing myself. Their ability to... So they have like one negative where it's their passive point, I don't think is that well used on their normal class. It's like fine, it's like quick curse, it lowers someone's damage. But man, their 2 main curses are huge. One of them is great for basically pushing and dealing damage, and the other one is great for basically defense. So one of them will take the PP, will drain a PP from a whole row of enemies and lower their initiative by 10. This character has very high initiative, so this is likely to get you the ability to have a first strike on your team. Just because you go there, it's got true hit, you lower all their initiatives by 10, and you lower their passive points by 1. So now suddenly their characters are doing way less interesting things, and they're way slower, so you get to go in first. And then I would probably equip something that gives her her passive point some way to increase damage on a character. Maybe the choker, that you can get that increases the magic of another character by 50% and lowers hers, but she doesn't use it to attack. Her other curse is also really good though. It lowers like an entire row's attack and magic by 50%. Like, that's fucking huge. If you're trying to just hold a line, a garrison, like, it's so hard. If you get 50% reduced damage, you're gonna have a hard time beating something, even if you're just using it to like hold a point so they bounce off and you're not trying to kill them, and you're just you could basically hold a spot all day if you're garrisoned, I think, like with infinite sustain. So I think that character will be incredibly good for that. But yeah, honestly, this went longer than I was expecting. I'm probably gonna edit this here so I can add some music to it, because I didn't have any sound playing during. But if you heard sound, that means I edited it. Yay, good job. So yeah, let me know where you agree, where you disagree. I'm looking at it now, and I actually think I'm happy with this. I think most characters are really strong. I think the B, C, and D, the D tier are the two characters that I just like, that's probably the weakest, but it's like, most characters are up here, and that is how I honestly feel. I feel like most characters are really strong and unique, and these ones I don't think are necessarily weak. I just think like a little niche, a little niche, a little niche, just doesn't really excel at too much, even though they're good, and then kind of the opposite of a glass cannon. I think they sacrifice too much damage to do their defending thing when the Lord is around, able to do almost the exact same thing. But yeah, that's going to be it for today, guys. Thank you so much for Platypus. For Platypus, I'll see you on the flip-flops. Bye.